This is the sound of history.
Yeah, one journalist put it very well, said U2's music is for the head, the heart, and for the feet.
Ramones kind of signifies unity or family, brother, gang, brotherhood, all that crap. So here we are, the Ramones.
The Clash has got a job on in trying to attempt its ridiculous aims. You know, I'm proud that we've got ridiculous aims, because at least we ain't going to underachieve.
This is another special project of the ongoing history of new music. The 100 Greatest New Rock Moments Ever. Part 6.
Now, the ongoing history of new music.
Welcome again, I'm Alan Cross, and this is part 6 of a 10-part series entitled The Top 100 Moments in New Rock. We're looking at the big and the small events that helped shape our music over the decades. Many of these moments were the results of careful planning and thought. Others were serendipitous, coincidences, and others were disastrous accidents. Here's an example of what I'm talking about, but we'll go to the regular history books first. One of the great events of the late 20th century was the fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9th, 1989. Pressures had been building against the East German government throughout that fall as all the old Soviet states in Eastern Europe began to open up their borders, and by early November it was obvious that something had to give. Just before 7 o'clock on the night of November the 9th, a rookie spokesman for the Communist Party held a live, televised press conference to talk about the great achievements of socialism. Boring. But then a journalist raised his hand and asked this question: when will your citizens be allowed to travel freely? This rookie spokesman shocked everyone by saying, hey, they can go whenever they like, and nobody will stop them. It was 3 minutes before 7 o'clock on November 9th, 1989. And even as this guy tried to clarify his remarks with, wait, this is what I meant, it was too late. Within hours, hundreds of thousands of people had gathered at the wall in East Berlin and eventually pushed their way through to the west. And that's when the wall started coming down. Now, it could have been a slaughter, but for whatever reason, none of the border guards fired a single shot into the crowd. The Berlin Wall. Who knows what might have happened had Dude at the press conference chosen his words more carefully. All right, let's get back to music. Moment number 50 occurred in the dying hours of the festival designed to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the original Woodstock. It was an old Air Force base in Rome, New York, and the date was July 26th, 1999. Now, it had been a rough weekend. Temperatures stayed close to 38 degrees. Food and water was insanely expensive. A small pizza cost $12 American. There were terribly unsanitary conditions in the campground. Add in some very testosterone-fueled performances, and things reached a breaking point. As the Red Hot Chili Peppers played on the East Stage, bonfires were lit. Crowds began to tear down equipment, fences, and light and sound towers. Vendors' booths in a nearby hardware store were looted and vandalized. A TV crew was forced from their mobile studio, and by the time the smoke cleared, 12 tractor-trailers were looted and burned. Afterwards, there were charges of rape and sexual assault. It was not rock's finest hour. The riots at Woodstock, July 26, 1999. New Rock Moment number 50. New Rock moment number 50. The Red Hot Chili Peppers playing Fire while the Woodstock Festival burned. July 26th, 1999. Oh, by the way, Flea played that entire set completely naked. Moment number 49 happened after a pickup basketball game in San Diego. Up in Seattle, two guys, Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament, formed a band called Love Company. And they eventually hooked up with a guitarist named Mike McCready. And while they tried to find a permanent drummer, they circulated a demo of some of their friends with hopes of somehow finding a singer. A copy of that Love Company demo was given to Jack Irons, who used to play drums for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Jack knew this surfer dude who worked the night shift at a tank farm in San Diego run by Chevron, the oil company. Jack and this guy played pickup basketball a lot, and after one game, Jack passed this tape along to this kid named Eddie Vedder. As soon as Eddie got the tape from Jack, he started listening to it over and over. And one morning, after getting off the night shift, Eddie went surfing. And after coming home from the beach, he sat down and wrote words to 3 of the 5 songs on the tape. He dubbed the words and the music onto a new cassette and sent the package up to Seattle. And when Jeff and Stone heard Eddie sing, they knew they had found their frontman. That's when Eddie flew up to Seattle and began to jam with the guys. And the result was obviously Pearl Jam, one of the biggest bands of the 1990s. This cassette, passed out of a gym bag sometime in 1989, might have resulted in the most profitable pickup basketball game ever played. Here's a sample of that cassette that Eddie sent back to Seattle. It's all part of New Rock moment number 49.
Now I got a little story for you. What you thought was your daddy was nothing but wow, you was taken home alone and expecting your real daddy was dying. Sorry you didn't see him, but I'm glad we saw him. Oh, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still alive.
New Rock moment number 49. Eddie Vedder is introduced to the rest of the guys in what will be soon known as Pearl Jam. Moment number 48 involves a surprise hit album, a #1 record. And not just any #1 record, it was the first ever rap record to top the charts. And the weird thing is, it came from a bunch of white guys. See, back in the middle 1980s, there was a huge gulf between rap and rock. If you were around at the time, maybe you remember the phrase rap crap. Rap was pushed into the margins by most people who dismissed it as a fad that would eventually just, kind of go away. But you see, they were missing the point. Rap music had already begun to spread to the suburbs. Black artists had begun to sell tons of records to a growing number of white kids. And the first song to bridge this gap between rap and rock was the Run DMC Aerosmith collaboration on Walk This Way in early 1986. And then just a few months later, here comes the Beastie Boys with this milestone album that showed to the world that rap and hip-hop were here to stay and could coexist with rock. Licensed to Ill was the first ever #1 hip-hop record. It was a major hit, and for many white kids, it was their first taste of this new music. It was rock, it was hip-hop, it was rap, all rolled together. And if you want to know where Korn and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and hundreds of other chunky, beat-heavy bands got some of their inspiration, then you need to start here. New Rock moment number 48. The Beasties entered the top 40 of the album charts December 20th, 1986, a place they'd stay for over 9 months. And in early 1987, they hit #1 with License to Ill. And that album stayed at #1 for 7 consecutive weeks.
Brass monkey, that funky monkey. Brass monkey, chunky, that funky monkey. Brass monkey, that's what it means. Drink brass monkey, here's how you feel.
The Beastie Boys hit number 1 with License to Ill, New Rock Moment number 48. Moment number 47 is another one that we can pin down to almost the second. It was 7 a.m., March 10th, 1977. After being paid £40,000 to go away by EMI Records, A&M signed the Sex Pistols to a new deal worth £150,000 on a table set up outside Buckingham Palace in London. After the ceremony and the press conference, everyone retired to the A&M offices in London, where they proceeded to trash the place. There were broken windows, food everywhere, piles of vomit, and trails of blood on the carpet. 6 days later, A&M announced that they were dropping the band, in part due to the flack they were getting from other acts on the label. Acts like, The Captain and Tennille. When manager Malcolm McLaren contacted the label head in L.A., he was told that the Pistols were being dropped for humane reasons. Whatever that means. The Pistols didn't collect their £150,000, but they did walk away with £75,000. Not bad for less than 6 days' work, right? Meanwhile, all copies of the first A&M single, God Save the Queen, were ordered destroyed. The few copies that survived are now worth thousands to collectors. The day the Pistols were paid £75,000 for trashing the offices of their record label. New Rock Moment number 47. The Sex Pistols, a New Rock Moment number 47, the day they destroyed their record company's offices and were paid thousands upon thousands of pounds to just go away. Coming up, moment number 46, which involves what's called a fortuitous act of vandalism. Hang tough.
You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music. You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music.
Welcome back to part 6 of our look at the 100 greatest moments in the history of new rock. Moment number 46 involves a can of spray paint, a case of vandalism, and a lot of alcohol. One night when Kurt Cobain had an apartment on North Pearl Street in Olympia, Washington, he went out drinking with his friend, Kathleen Hanna, who played in a band called Bikini Kill. On the way home, they decided to spray paint a little graffiti around town, and the spree continued when they got back to Kurt's place. Kathleen proceeded to spray paint the phrase, "Kurt smells like teen spirit," on his bedroom wall. What she really meant is that Kurt smelled sweet, like this trendy deodorant for girls called, yes, Teen Spirit. Apparently, Kurt liked Toby Vale, another member of Bikini Kill, and she used Teen Spirit. The implication in this graffiti was that Toby had marked Kurt with her scent, her deodorant scent. Kurt, who didn't wear deodorant apparently, didn't make the connection. Instead, he thought she was paying him a compliment, as in, "Hey, Kurt, you know what? You embody everything about teenage rebellion, and that's cool." It wasn't until after the song was written, recorded, and released that Kurt found out what had actually inspired one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time. No one remembers the exact date, but it was sometime in the winter of 1990.
Load up on guns, bring
Smells Like Teen Spirit and Kathleen Hanna's Spray Paint Job. New rock moment number 46. For moment number 45, we have to look at another invention. It's a fact that certain types of music just sounds better with a fat, heavy bottom end. That's where stringed instruments like the stand-up double bass came in. But up until the 1950s, bass notes came from a big, bulky acoustic instrument that was often taller than the person playing it. In 1951, Leo Fender's guitar company quietly released a brand new invention. They called it the Precision Bass. It was a solid-body guitar worn around the neck, so it was light and portable. Like the stand-up, though, it had 4 thick strings, but unlike most stand-ups, it had frets up and down the neck, showing the player where to press to get certain notes. And, of course, you had to plug the thing into an amplifier if you wanted to hear anything. Now, this was a really scary move for the company because in the days before rock and roll, there was no real market for such an instrument. This is why the first editions were sold complete with a 26-watt amp that had a 15-inch speaker. But as rock and roll gained traction in the 1950s, the electric bass became more and more popular. By 1957, more and more electrics were being seen on stage and heard on records, pushing the upright double bass out of rock and roll almost entirely. In other words, as the music got louder, the more people went all electric. And by the time the 1960s came along, a bunch of different companies were marketing electric bass guitars, including one that pushed a 6-string bass. Now, can you imagine today's music without a bass guitar? White Stripes notwithstanding, of course. The introduction of the solid-body electric bass guitar by the Fender Guitar Company in 1951. It's New Rock Moment number 45. The introduction of the electric bass in 1951, New Rock Moment number 45. Oh, and by the way, did you know that Leo Fender didn't know how to play guitar? It's true. His thing was tinkering with electronics. Moment number 44 was a traumatic moment for many fans of British music. It was the official end of the Smiths, one of the most influential UK bands of the 1980s. Between 1982 and 1987, the Smiths almost single-handedly rescued guitar-based pop music from extinction in the UK. Synthesizers were the big thing, but the Smiths insisted on writing guitar-based songs with strong hooks and intense lyrics. They were icons. They were heroes to a generation of disaffected and alienated alternative fans. But all was not well within the band. There were personality conflicts, a lot of drug use, a lot of fights with the record label. And by the spring of 1987, things were getting out of control, and rumors were everywhere in the British press, and it seemed that a split was inevitable. On August 18, 1987, Morrissey, the singer, sent a letter to Smith's producer Stephen Street, telling him that he intended to break up the band so he could pursue a solo career. And then, on September the 12th, the official news came down. The Smiths were no more. Now, if you were a hardcore fan, you'll remember how awful this was for you, because the Smiths were one of those rare bands that actually spoke to you on a deep personal level. For a certain segment of a certain generation, this breakup announcement on September 12, 1987, was every bit as important and as traumatic as the official breakup of the Beatles in 1970. The death of the Smiths, New Rock Moment number 44.
Girlfriend in a coma, I know, it's serious. Girlfriend in a coma, I know, it's really serious. There were times when I could have murdered her, but you know I would hate anything to happen to her. No, I don't want to see her. Do you really think she'll pull through? Do you really think she'll pull through? Girlfriend in a coma, I know it's serious. My baby goodbye. There were times when I could have strangled her, but you know I would hate anything to happen to her. Would you please let me see her? Do you really think she'll pull through? Do you really think she'll pull through? Let me whisper my last goodbyes. I know it's serious.
Girlfriend in a Coma, from Strange Ways Here We Come, released just 18 days after the Smiths' official breakup on September 12, 1987. Another traumatic event, this time of a cosmetic nature, is New Rock Moment number 43. That's next.
You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music. You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music.
In the early 1980s, one of the great post-punk movements was known as goth. Dark stuff, and the fashion was as black as the mood of the music. The Cure were amongst the biggest bands to emerge from that whole scene, and their look was copied by millions around the world. One of the most obvious fashion statements the Cure made could be found on the top of Robert Smith's head. It was simply known as the hair. Now, if you're a Cure fan, you know what I mean. This long, unruly mop of jet black hair that seemed to have a life of its own. The hair first appeared sometime in 1982 around the release of the Pornography album, but after years of growing even longer and swoopier, peaking with a spiderweb do in about 1984, it suddenly disappeared in late 1986 when Robert Smith got a military-style haircut. Reaction was swift and angry, much like what happened when Elvis got his haircut when he went into the Army in 1957. Robert learned his lesson and started to grow it out again, and by 1992, things were back to normal. The day Robert Smith lost the hair and angered Cure fans around the world. It's New Rock Moment number 43. Moment number 43, the day Robert Smith cut the hair in late 1986. Hey, if you're a fan back then, you know what I'm talking about. Moment number 42 seemed innocuous enough. It was in the fall of 1976. A 15-year-old kid named Larry Mullen pinned a note to the public bulletin board at Mount Temple Comprehensive High School in Dublin, Ireland. See, Larry played the drums, and he wanted to form a rock band. Several other people showed up in Larry's kitchen a few days later responding to this note, including a bass player named Adam Clayton. There were also a couple of brothers named Dave and Dick Evans, both of whom played guitar. There was Peter Martin, one of Larry's friends, who got in because he had a guitar and an amplifier. There was Ivan McCormick, who brought another electric guitar. And then there was this guy named Paul Hewson. Now, they talked about music for a while before all seven of them plugged into Peter's amp. Yes, all seven of them into one amp, and did their best to make some noise. Over the next few weeks, the lineup would be pared down to just 5 people: Larry, Adam, Dave, Dick, and Paul. And although Paul insists he had mastered the guitar, he was actually really crappy. Now, he was told he could stay, but he had to sing. He had to promise never, ever to touch a guitar again. He agreed, and he was allowed to stay. In case you haven't figured things out by now, this is the earliest days of U2. Let's hear from the guys themselves.
So I'd spent all my pocket money on drum kits, and suddenly you get to the stage after playing your bedroom for 6 months, so you wonder where to go, you know. So just thought it'd be a good idea maybe if I just stuck a a notice up just on the off chance that's when you might be interested in somebody with an accordion might come along and be able to do some traditional Irish music or something like that, you know.
Did you know the other guys, Larry, when you pinned that up at the time?
No, I'd heard of this fella called Paul Hewson. Like, he was fairly notorious.
That's if
I remember correctly.
Mildly.
And then there was Adam, because Adam was a new boy in town, and he used to wear this fantastic Afghan coat. That's how I knew Adam.
He had to get his coat cut before the kid joined.
But no, I didn't know the guys at all.
But I mean, I was a bigger boy, wasn't I? I mean, I was 16 and he was only 14, so I mean, any 16-year-old's notorious to a 14-year-old. Adam, being a poshie from Malahide, he had an amplifier, and we all plugged into his amplifier. Yeah, I fancied myself. I thought I'd be a lead guitar player, actually. And in fact, everyone wanted to play the guitar, as far as I remember. Even Larry was getting bored behind the drum kit, and he thought, yeah, I quite like playing guitar. But so then they stopped me playing lead guitar, and then I was on rhythm guitar, and then they stopped me playing rhythm guitar. Eventually, I think they wanted me to manage the group, but I wouldn't leave the stage. I felt I'd be better off on a stage than behind the scenes. So I began as a singer, but I was a really lousy, rotten singer. I've just actually recently learned how to use my voice, though I've never had a lesson in my life.
Some very early U2 from about 1978. And it all began with that notice on the bulletin board in October 1976. It's New Rock Moment number 42. Our final moment for this episode has to do with a kid named Sean Fanning. Now, he was a pretty good computer geek. During the summer, he worked at his Uncle John's company called NetGames. And when he graduated, he enrolled in the computer science department at Northeastern University in Boston. Even though he was immediately pushed ahead into senior-level courses, Sean was bored. Instead of going to class, he'd fool around with this $7,000 notebook computer his Uncle John gave him, and one day a roommate introduced him to the world of MP3s. But, like a lot of people, Sean grew tired of dead-end searches, lost FTP downloads, and central servers that crapped out under the strain of too many people trying to grab the same song at the same time. So, with the encouragement of Uncle John, Sean wrote a program. A music application for the Internet that was way better than traditional search engines. He spent 16 hours a day on the project, getting help from two guys he met on IRC, a guy named Sean Parker, and then there was Jordan Ritter. On June 1st, 1999, it was done. Sean gave the program the nickname people had given him because of his short, curly, nappy hair. He called his creation Napster, and he gave this software free to 30 friends that he met in chat rooms. They could use Napster on the condition they didn't tell anybody about it. Naturally, no one could keep a secret, and within just a few days, Napster had spread from 30 people to more than 15,000. And now, you know the story. The entire music industry has been completely changed and continues to change because what that bored kid did in his dorm room. The first application of Napster, June 1st, 1990. New Rock Moment number 41. The introduction of Napster to the Internet, June 1st, 1990, and the beginning of Metallica's big nightmare. That's New Rock Moment number 41. A summary of where we are to date, and a look at the next show right after this.
You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music. You're tuned to the ongoing history of new music.
Here's a quick rundown of great New Rock moments 50 through 41. 50, the riots at Woodstock in 1999. Number 49, Jack Irons passes the Love Company demo tape to Eddie Vedder. At 48, the Beasties hit number 1 on the album charts with License to Ill. The Sex Pistols signed with A&M in front of Buckingham Palace is moment number 47. Kathleen Hanna's Teen Spirit Vandalism is at number 46. At 45, it's the invention of the electric bass guitar in 1951. 44 was the breakup of the Smiths, while 43 was Robert Smith's traumatic haircut. At 42, it's Larry Mullen's bulletin board note. And at 41, it's the introduction of Napster, the illegal version. Next time, it's a look at an exploding brain, a landmark first gig, and the greatest British battle since World War II, I guess. Be here next time as we continue to look at the 100 greatest moments in new rock. Technical productions by Rob Johnston. I'm Alan Krause.
You've been listening to The Ongoing History of New Music, a Deep Sky production.